Okay, it shows as recording on my end. Very good.
Perfect. We are up and running. Okay, so hello, everyone. Welcome to Cozett Contemplates. And I'm so excited to have one of my favorite guests back, Mr. Jimmy Urcioli of Green Steps in Chattanooga. How are you, Jimmy?
Oh, great. Thank you, Cozett. I appreciate you having me back.
You are so welcome. I'm stoked to have you back. I knew when we connected, I was like, I so hope that he will come back on.
Totally. 100%. Thrilled to do it.
Good deal, good deal. So I just really look up to you because you have such an amazing heart. I love the things that you're involved in, and that's really what just drove me to connect with you. In one of our last videos, our first video together, we talked a lot about green steps and the environment, and that is something that's very near and dear to my heart. And so, in the course of talking with you, I know that you are vegan, right?
Correct.
Vegan, okay. And so, I understand that veganism is also an incredible way to support the environment. And that's something that I want to do. And so, for everybody who's watching, I know that we're January 2021, and so a lot of us have probably some New Year's resolutions that we're working on. One of those may be changing your diet, trying to figure out how best to serve the world around you. And I know personally, I have been entertaining veganism for a little bit a as an option for me. One of my guiding principles, the foundation of my own morality, is compassion. And I think that if you're that kind of a person, then you're just naturally probably going to gravitate towards at least exploring a vegan, vegetarian lifestyle. What do you think, Jimmy?
Absolutely. I think for me, the core of veganism is compassion. That is the ultimate reason why I chose that path, is because I do have so much compassion for our planet and for human and non-human animals. And so it
Yes.
absolutely makes sense. Compassionate people tend to have a pretty open mind toward veganism.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. And so, for anybody who's watching this video, first, I just want to say congratulations and welcome to 2021. Um, I think we all deserve a medal for making it to 2021 because 2020 was a dumpster fire, man. The
You're
whole
not
freaking year, in my opinion.
wrong.
But yeah, so Jimmy, just as we're getting kicked off here, do you have like any kind of encouraging words or tips or anything that you want to share for people just to kind of get us set for 2021
As it pertains to veganism or just in general?
in general?
You know, I think the biggest thing for me is to not have too many expectations. Just take it day by day. I think that's the biggest component for me. I have all these lofty goals and dreams and ideas, and I'm not saying to dismiss those. I'm absolutely encouraging of being a go-getter, but at the same time, take space, take quiet time, take time to just be compassionate with yourself. That's my biggest piece of advice. Just, you know, to be easy on yourself. Life's
Yeah,
hard enough as it is, and we have a lot of critics coming at us. Why do we need to be so hypercritical of our own selves? I'm literally talking to me as I'm saying this out loud. So that's my biggest piece of advice.
yeah. Well, that's incredible. It's a sound advice. Just as an FYI, my washing machine is going, so I don't know if you can hear that. But I'm also expecting a delivery, so my doorbell may ring.
This is real life, y'all.
It is, yeah. There's no pretense here. But yeah, I think those words are super wise because I think if anything that could be salvaged from 2020, it is the fact that we have been handed an opportunity to slow down and take the pressure off. I think before the pandemic, life was just at such a furious pace. It was not conducive for us to slow down and take space.
Not for most people.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
for most people.
yeah, I
Um,
would agree.
and I feel like our productivity equaled success in our society, and I think we're having to kind of retrain that that's not exactly always the case.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a huge lesson that we're going to be, and that's probably a lesson from the rear view, I think. That's something I think we'll realize more and more as time goes on, actually.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have any updates for Green Steps, by the way?
Um, we are doing a virtual litter challenge next week. So,
Okay.
if you don't know about Green Steps, y'all, we are a Chattanooga based organization, and our focus is removing litter from the environment and educating people about the harmful impacts of litter and ways that we can be more sustainable in our daily life. So we have been trying this new idea of virtual litter challenges, which essentially we're challenging people for a week to get out there and pick up trash on your own or with a small group. And then you take pictures of your work, tag us on social media, and then we enter you in a raffle. So we just got word today that Chattanooga Brewing Company is going to be donating some cool prizes to us. And the last go around, our last litter challenge, we had Sluggo's gift card, Cashew, Southern Squeeze, Bread and Butter. They all donated gift cards, so we get some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
So if that's not if solving environmental problems in your own backyard isn't a reward enough, let that be some incentive for you to get out there and pick up some litter. So that happens next week, January 25th through the 31st. So follow us at Green Steps Chat, CHATT, and that's on Instagram and Facebook, and you can find all the details there.
Very good. Well, that's exciting. So I encourage everybody who's watching this, get involved. It's a lot of fun and it is amazing. It is amazing to me how picking up a gum wrapper has such a huge impact on the environment. It's astounding to me. And so I think that's what we're going to get into a little bit. This is like some of the questions come into my mind as we start to talk about veganism. But so tell me what's your backstory with veganism? How did you come to it? What is your story with it?
Sure. I remember the first time I met a vegan, it must have been 2009. And I thought it was so obscure. I remember him explaining it to me, and I thought, well, that sounds good in theory, but I can't imagine giving up Waffle House and IHOP and seafood and all the things. So, for whatever reason, it just didn't click for me in that moment. And I can remember even saying to him, like, yeah, I guess I just don't really have it in me to make the change. I was apathetic for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Then fast forward to 2012, I kind of had a new lease on life at that point. I had really gotten into fitness and health, whereas that was so foreign to me before. I got into fitness and health and started spending a lot more time outside and just really connecting with the person who I've made myself in today. Um, and I remember going on a camping trip with a friend who was at the time vegetarian, and she was concerned about camping with all of us and being the only vegetarian and feeling kind of left out of meals or feeling like she had to like plan and bring her own stuff. And I just said, well, you know what, why don't I just do it with you for the week and we can go grocery shopping together? Maybe you can teach me a thing or two about this. And I found it really satisfying. It was no problem. And this is 2012. This is when vegan options weren't near as abundant as they are now. And even then, there were enough options that kept me happy. So then we started having more philosophical conversations surrounding vegetarianism and veganism. Uh, and the biggest component for her was animal rights. And she started just detailing more of things that I already knew that I had sort of just disassociated with about factory farming and the cruelty. And it really hit me in that moment that I had a responsibility to make a change because I claimed to be an animal lover. It just didn't really quite make sense to eat them if I really was an animal lover, especially if I didn't need to eat them for survival.
Right.
Um, and she was a ecology and biology double major at that time. So she was fueling my brain with all the environmental components of it, understanding how much more water it takes to create animal products that we put on our plates. It takes a lot more water to irrigate the crops that then go to the animals. And just realizing that all of the waste from animals contributed to water pollution and just this trickle down effect all the way across the board, and dug into the human rights perspective. The problem is that we have to still have bodies out there, rearing these animals and killing these animals.
Hmm.
And oftentimes, the people that we employ in these facilities don't really have an abundance of job opportunities. Maybe it's in a rural area or a low income area. Oftentimes, these are migrant workers, people of color, white poor people. So we end up putting that burden on disenfranchised people. And I found that to be really problematic. And
Hmm.
then digging into the health component. And so we unpacked all of this over this camping trip, realizing that animal products aren't actually good for your body,
Hmm.
realizing that we shouldn't be consuming milk from cows and goats, that it really is kind of strange. So all of this just like exploded my mind, and I was like, I'm going vegan. Like, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
be vegetarian, I'm going vegan. Like, let's go. And I hit the ground running with it. And um I had an epic failure. Epic failure. I I became so emaciated within such a short period of time because I just didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so I immediately, 2 months in, got back to eating fish. And I became convinced that I had to have some animal product in my diet in order to feel healthy. I was somebody that was exercising frequently, always hungry, and the plants just were not filling me up. So went back to eating fish, but then I'd feel guilty about it, and then I'd stop eating fish, and then I'd go back, and it was just this constant spiral of like feeling famished, going back to eating animals, and then feeling guilty, and then wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
So it was tumultuous, but with time, I was able to really wean myself off of these things. And I remember one distinct day in 2016, I took a bite of fish and I just went, uh-uh, no more. It
Couldn't do
just
it.
pushed it away and was just like, I have to give that to somebody. I don't think I could ever eat fish again.
Yeah.
So eggs were then the last thing to go. I had consistently cut dairy out. I know that's a hard one for people, but that one was, for whatever reason, easier for me. Dairy, I've been dairy free since 2012,
Mm.
but the eggs were the last thing to go, and I finally kicked that in 2019, and that was the same moment. I took a bite of an egg, and I was like, nope. We have chickens here on the property where I live, and I had gone into the coop that day to collect the eggs, and I remember just kind of looking around and smelling the smells and looking at the eggs, and I was just like, something about this just doesn't quite feel right. And I had like I said, an egg later that day, and it just totally turned me.
Mm.
Um, so ever since then, I have been fully vegan, and um, part of it was just learning how to rethink making meals. I had to rethink how to get my fats and how to get proper balances of protein. And once you know what you're doing, it's pretty darn easy and you feel pretty fantastic. I'm still very active. I would say I'm just as in good a shape as I was in 2012. And I feel better than ever. So, all that said, a message to somebody out there that's thinking about starting a vegan journey, and maybe you consume a lot of animal products as it is in your day to day, don't be afraid to take a slow approach. Um, you know, my passion and my mind wanted me to be able to do this thing overnight, make this radical change, but in
Yeah.
application, it didn't work. That's not to say it doesn't work for some. There are some people that go cold turkey vegan and it works, but then there's
Yeah.
people like me that it doesn't work. So that goes back to the very beginning when we talked about bits of advice for 2021.
Hmm.
Be so hard on yourself. Don't have too many expectations. And keep your goals in mind. If veganism is one of those goals for you, keep that at the forefront. But if you slip, if it's difficult, I get it. It was for me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry that was long-winded, but it's a story.
No,
It's a lot to
no,
unpack.
it's really good. I love that story. So much came to mind. I think, so just to tell you about my background, and I think you probably encounter this a lot when you're talking about veganism. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance that you have to wade through, yeah, to get to that point. So, my backstory is I was raised and I grew up in a tiny farming community, okay? And so it was all cattle farms and tobacco farms. And so I grew up, and my grandfather raised cattle for beef. And so I grew up with these amazing, intelligent, beautiful creatures. And there were, I would get close to the calves that were born. And I just remember feeling so connected to them. And the older I got, and I was like, why do we have so many cows? What are we doing with these cows? And my grandmother's like, yeah, we're eating them, and then we're selling them to be eaten. And I'm just like, it was so hard for me, but I still was like, okay, we're still eating, we're still eating our cows. So there's just been so much back and forth for me, and and then I guess it's been probably 3 years ago I started looking into vegetarianism and veganism more, and I definitely scaled back my animal consumption in all forms, whether it was just meat or meat products or whatever. And so definitely started feeling better. Um, and I can totally relate to some of the things that you said, because I have naturally, as time has gone on since these past 3 years, that I've been trying to get more into it and understand more and really make the leap for it. Um, I've had these moments where I just naturally become averse to, yeah, I'll never eat that again. I'll never eat this form of meat or meat product again. And so, but yeah, I've had to wade through my own cognitive dissonance, growing up in that farming community, and just trying to figure out there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect. We love these animals. These animals are their lives. We're lives. We're not any better than they are. And here we are. So, yeah, I think that's a great story. Um, it's really interesting how you came to it. And I think maybe people get it in their minds, okay, if I'm going to do this, it's got to be cold turkey. And if it's, if I mess up, then I'll just go back to what I was used to. So I've definitely found that, within myself, but I have been trying to take a slower approach. So I'm hoping to be more successful in 2021 with that. Have you heard? Let me ask you this. I have heard that um, it's almost like your body detoxes as you transform in or transfer into veganism. What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely felt what they felt like symptoms of a drug detox in the beginning. I
Yeah,
can remember feeling just absolutely erratic. I felt crazy. I mean, not right. So
yeah,
perhaps that was some detoxification at work. Yeah, it absolutely there's an adjustment period.
yeah,
That is for sure. Um, I will say though, when I was trying to attempt this, what I think I was really searching for was just satiation. I was searching for something to fill me up, and
yeah,
like for whatever reason, broccoli and grains weren't doing it. But in today's market, I mean, go to any grocery store, I mean, really any grocery chain, and you can find some amazing alternatives if that's the route that you want to go. If you want to still keep those kind of like comfort foods in your pantry and fridge, there's so many more options than there were back in 2012, even. Like, we've come a long way. So
Yeah.
you can get that kind of like that fix for whatever it is that you really love. The
Yeah.
the plants can do it. It's quite amazing. Um,
Yeah.
so so I don't know. Had I had those alternatives, would I have felt the same way that I did? I'm not so sure. But I know that I felt crazy, and I chalked it up to some sort of detox happening. Or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it, I think. And I've heard stories about that. And so, another thing I just want to say is I am so thankful to have you as a go to for this. I have the other vegan friends um, that are on my Facebook, but I'll tell you, they are hostile, bro. They are like mean. So I'm like, I'm afraid to ask any questions, and I'm afraid to go to them as a resource because, they just kind of discount me, I guess.
Well, and I think that that's something that if you're coming to veganism from an ethical perspective, um, when all that information is new to you, it's sort of hard not to be hostile. I remember there was a time where I felt like a true misanthrope, just someone that doesn't like people. I really just got so angry with the world. There were so many documentaries I was watching. I was like, how can our kind, how can human beings be capable of
Yeah,
much suffering?
yeah,
And so there was a time where I was a bit more hostile. But
yeah.
what I've realized is that approach just doesn't work for anything in life.
It doesn't.
It just doesn't apply. I mean, you put any topic, anything that you want to try to convert someone to or
Yeah,
persuade somebody to believe, hostility is not going to be the ticket. What's going to be the ticket is providing people information and providing people resources and encouragement and patience.
yeah.
Um, you know, that that's the biggest piece for me is what I've had to learn. I don't know if you follow Tabitha Brown, but
Mm-mm.
Tabitha Brown is just the light of my life.
Oh,
She blew up on Instagram, and she's a vegan food influencer. And her approach is just so soft and sweet and funny and upbeat. God,
yeah.
just the more, and it went from all my vegan friends following her to folks that I know were not vegan all of a sudden following her. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
she blew up and she's reached so many people. And I know people that have gone, have transitioned to veganism just from viewing her content.
Wow.
And so that method works. That's
Yeah.
what really works. It's kindness and compassion and putting a lightness to it. So I'm so inspired by her. She's my number one inspiration for ways to be a better vegan advocate.
Nice. I will definitely check her out.
100%.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I definitely will. So I know you probably won't have like stats at your fingertips, but talk to me a little bit about what is the positive environmental impact of going vegan?
Well, let's think about land usage first. Um, so you're rearing animals. Let's use cattle as an example. Cattle need a lot of space. They need a lot of space. They're large animals. They are grazing animals. They take up a lot of room. So we have to clear land in order to place them somewhere, whether that's a concentrated animal feeding operation or what we call pasture raised, grass fed. So just right there, having to deforest land or convert old prairie land into grazing land for the animals. And then that land becomes littered with waste. Lots of, have you ever seen a cow poop?
Oh, yes.
Well, and then imagine all the millions of cows pooping.
Yeah.
And then those feces wash into the receiving water body because guess what? Cattle need water too. So these operations are often located close to water sources. So anytime big heavy rain comes, that all washes right into our water bodies. And that's incredibly problematic. It's nutrient rich waste, and we don't want lots of nutrients in our water because that's what feeds algal blooms. And it causes just a large array of trickle down effects on our water system. So that's a big one. But just as well, we need food to grow and then feed to these animals. So then we're taking up additional space. Let's say this is not a grass-fed operation. Let's say this is a concentrated animal feeding operation where you see the big troughs that they fill with corn.
Yeah.
We're then having to grow tons and tons and tons of corn to feed to the cow, and then the cow gets processed for us to eat. We would use so much less land if we were only growing plants and we cut out that middleman of the animal. And so that's a big component, is it land use, water pollution, and then the greenhouse gases that are emitted from that waste concentrate. That
Mhm.
waste concentrate is going to, there's going to be CO2 emissions from that, and lots of methane. And methane is a really problematic gas for our atmosphere. And so the the climate change effect is profound
Mm.
from animals, and it's not just cows, chickens. Really farm wide, there's really no animal that we raise that has a positive impact on the environment.
Yeah.
Few
Yeah.
exceptions, few exceptions, but yeah, it takes food to feed these animals, and it takes land to house these animals, and it takes water, and then we pollute the water.
Yeah.
And that causes problems not just for wildlife, it causes human problems.
Yeah.
It causes a lot of issues. So, and then, the transport associated. Yes, we have to transport plant materials too that we eat, but we're just by sheer volume, we're having to transport so much more mass when it comes to these animals. So the transportation component that uses gas. There's greenhouse gases being emitted from that process. So
Mm.
all around, I mean, really in every direction that you look, there's problems in the environment, and that's science is solid in that. That's not opinion.
Right.
It's absolute fact. We can argue the ethics of killing animals, but we can't argue the environmental impact. Bottom line,
Yeah.
on the scale that we're consuming animals, it's
Yeah.
inarguable.
Yeah, totally. And that's one of the things that has me kind of gripped and wanting to do this because I'm really seeing that we are sorely taxing our natural resources, sorely. And that's a problem.
It's a
That is a
huge problem.
huge problem.
It's a huge
Um,
problem, and a stat for you is that greenhouse gas emissions are animal animal feeding operations, and just animal agriculture in general has a higher climate change impact than any other sector. So oftentimes people think about automobiles and transportation to be a
hmm,
huge source of CO2 emissions, and that's true. But what is often discounted is the methane produced from animal agriculture, which does have really amplifying effects for climate change. So that is number one. The number one cause of climate change is animal agriculture.
wow, that is staggering.
It is.
Just making changes in that one area, it can have such a huge impact for the environment. That just blows my mind. I watched a documentary, it's been a couple of years ago, but it was about the food industry. And apparently, there's a lot of really shady things that go on and drive, the meat consumption and drive, these unhealthy, unsustainable, uh, you know, meat growing practices. And so are you aware, or can you speak to that any at all, how the food industry may be driving this and ethical issues in that?
There's no doubt that the meat industry is there in the politicians' back pocket. There's no doubt about it. Um,
Right.
the government subsidies that are provided for animal agriculture, that's very telling in itself.
Hmm.
I'd say I'm not an expert in giving all the stats. A lot of these things I'm rusty on,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I just invite anybody who's watching this to do their own research. Do your research because there's a lot to be revealed that is hidden behind a veil. Um,
yeah,
yeah, there absolutely is. Um, you know, there's a lot of problems that big big money wants to get into,
yes,
and yeah, I won't
yeah,
speak too much to that because it's not my area of expertise. But
yeah. But it's known, and it's like, I think a lot of times we think about big pharma and industries like that, and we think that that's where all the shade is. But I mean, we can unfortunately find that in the meat industry as well. The
and
food
they're
industry.
closely linked together,
Yeah, yeah. I that's what I'm thinking. I would need to research it because, like, I can totally see how they'd be connected, but I can't really speak to it just yet because I don't know enough. But
yeah.
kind of, this isn't necessarily pharmaceutical, but just thinking about like vegan products. This is kind of a funny story for you. It's probably been like 5 years ago. I decided to go to the beach, and I think I was in maybe Pensacola or near Pensacola somewhere. And I was shopping for sunscreen. And so I was looking in the shop and all these different options, and I came across vegan sunscreen. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know veganism extended to these kinds of products. But I'm seeing more and more products like that are labeled as vegan. So can you speak to any of that and tell me what that's about?
I don't know specifically about sunscreen, like what would typically be in sunscreen that would make it non-vegan. Um,
Yeah,
but when you start looking at the labels, you'll see things like lanolin in a lot of products, which is the secretions from sheep wool.
yeah,
That often is kind of put into cosmetics and supplements. So little sneaky things like that can
mm,
be can can be found often in your everyday products. But do your research. Look for that little V symbol that shows that the product is vegan. I know the sunscreen I use is vegan, but I also have an eye for that. I'm constantly looking for to make
for
sure that
vegan.
they're not only vegan but not tested on animals as well, because you'll
Yeah,
sometimes see products labeled as cruelty free, which means that they don't test on animals. But sometimes there's still animal products within it. They're just not testing it on animals.
wow.
So it's not the same thing. Uh,
No.
check for that.
See, it's so nuanced, and that is where the cognitive dissonance comes in, I think, because that's something that it just wouldn't have occurred to me.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. Very, very interesting.
I wanted to make a point, but I lost it. Continue on, and if it comes back to me, I'll go for
Well,
it.
it's all. Hey, and if it comes back to you, just like stop me.
Real
Okay.
life, y'all. This is real life.
Yeah. Does that contemplate? No pretense around here, y'all. We are who we are.
Yes.
Awesome. So, what about like I'm trying to think about like the process and goal setting. Where is like a good place to start? Like if someone wants to do just like one baby step, what would you recommend?
Meatless Monday. That would be the first thing that I would recommend. Is
Okay.
take that day to practice not consuming any animal products. Uh, maybe you start by just making it a vegetarian day. And that's one way to start. That's one plant-based day, and that's going to get you thinking about meals that you can make because it's a full day of you got to figure out breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And
Yeah.
so it's going to get you thinking, and every Monday you can mix it up a little bit and try something new. And next thing you know, you have a whole arsenal of vegan recipes because you've been practicing for one day a week. I
Yeah.
think that is a great step. It's it's been popularized in social media in recent years. I see a lot of people that are non-vegans tagging Meatless Monday, so it's a great place to start. Just try that out. See how that does it for you, because it's only one day. What do you
Yeah.
really have to lose there?
Yeah. That is a great idea. I think I'm actually going to do that myself. Um, I love the idea of Meatless Monday. What are, like, I know that as I have explored transitioning to veganism, I think about a lot of times when I'm cooking, like, what are the best substitutes? Because we have to get used to this whole new scheme of cooking and preparing our foods. What are some of your favorite substitutes, maybe that you started early on?
So I come from more of a whole foods plant-based perspective, which that means just like real, not real food,
Yeah,
essentially.
right.
Your nuts, your beans, vegetables, fruits. So that's the way that I like to eat, with occasional indulgences. But for the most part, I keep it pretty clean and simple. One of my favorite products to keep in my house is tempeh. So if you don't have any kind of soy allergies, tempeh is a great option.
Okay.
There's been a lot of bad press on soy throughout the years, a lot of misconceptions there. Soy, if you're a male and you're concerned about developing breasts from eating too much soy because there's estrogen in it, it's just simply not true. Um,
Wow.
Phytoestrogens that are in soy, which are very different than the kind of estrogens that are found in animals, and they don't translate in that way of like making you more feminine. Or I think that was just a tactic to move toward like emasculating veganism. That's a whole nother topic in itself, is like the emasculation of eating plant-based. But stay on track, Jimmy.
Wow.
Temp,
I feel another Cozett Contemplates episode coming on.
that's a big one.
Yeah.
And we can maybe touch on that a little bit more. But tempeh is a great product. It's the whole soybean that's been fermented in a block, and it kind of looks, but when you can prepare it to be like bacon, you can prepare it to be like any substitute meat that you want, and it is a great example of a non-processed fermented food, which is good for your gut.
Yeah.
It's high protein. It's so satisfying. I don't know anybody that I've ever cooked tempeh for that didn't like it. You could put it on a
Nice.
sandwich. You could put it on pizza. You could put it on just about damn near anything. And it is
Nice.
so good. And it just takes on the flavor of whatever you want to give it. So that is a really big one for me. And I'm a tofu lover. I know a lot of folks hate on tofu, but you probably just haven't had it prepared very good.
Yeah.
Tofu is another soy product, and it is considered a whole form of soy, a minimally processed version. And I like to cut that up and marinate it and stick it in the air fryer and get the crispy edges and the soft
Yeah.
inside. And I mean, I love tofu. That was an acquired taste. I was not raised on tofu, but I can't get enough of it now. So if you
Yeah.
have it prepared right, very good. If you go to prepared foods and Whole Foods, they have chicken fried tofu that will totally blow your mind. So
Heck yeah.
that, oh yeah, it is remarkable. I mean, everybody likes it. It's really,
Really?
yes, it's so good. Um, if you're avoiding soy, beans are a great option. Beans are so satiating and filling, and legumes of all sorts: lentils, kidney beans, black beans, split peas, lima beans. I mean, the list is endless.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing substitute for meat, because you're going to get all the protein without the fat and cholesterol.
Yeah.
So you're getting just, it's a great clean source of protein. And I like to complement that with a grain like rice or quinoa. Cook you up a good bowl of some sort of base grain, some sautéed vegetables, throw some beans in that thing, some avocado slices. It's a meal there. You will be full.
Yeah.
You
It
will
sounds
feel
amazing.
satisfied. It's all about the sauce. Got to get the sauce. Um, it really is. I mean, That's the key to eating good vegan food. You gotta get it, make it saucy.
Yeah.
But isn't that the key to good meat too? We want flavor, and
Yeah.
it's really all the same principles. You,
Mm-hmm.
you just you gotta get a little bit different perspective.
True.
So those are a couple things. If you're the type that likes a good sausage or a hot dog, the Field Roast brand, 10 out of 10, so good. That is also a soy-free option that is based from vital wheat gluten. So if you're gluten-free, that's not going to be a great choice for you. I mean, that stuff tastes like a sausage. It tastes like a hot dog. Slap that on a bun with some relish and mustard and ketchup and whatever you like to do to your hot dog, and you might not know the difference.
Nice.
That is, I test that one. I give that to my Omni friends, and they're always like, "Wait a second, wait, this isn't vegan." Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's endless. If you're trying to eat clean and you're trying to eat affordably, beans are going to be your best friend. The legumes are going to be your best friend, and you can do so much with them. You can make black bean patties, you can make lentil patties, refried beans. Hummus is based from chickpeas, which is a legume.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to eat more affordably, beans are going to be your absolute best friend, and you can do so much with them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what about another thing that I hear a lot of people who are concerned about transitioning from a meat based diet to veganism? I always hear it's inevitable. I hear, well, you're not going to get enough protein, or you're not going to get enough B vitamins, or you're not going to get enough this, and they go through all these nutrients. But what are your thoughts on that?
So protein is not really an issue. Protein is in just about everything.
Hmm.
Protein deficiency is not something that is commonly seen in vegans. When vegans go to their doctor to get their blood work done and get a full lipid panel, protein deficiency is pretty much not going to happen unless you are starving, unless
Hmm.
you're really not eating food. So, if you're the type of person that's a bodybuilder type and you're really trying to put on muscle, there's so many plant-based options for that. There's no problem getting protein. Promise you that. I can get 100 grams of protein in a day without even thinking about it. So
Wow.
so protein's really not a problem.
Okay.
But uh, fat is one thing that we should consider. There's some debate whether how good fat is for you or not.
Hmm.
I won't get quite into that, um, because there's just so much debate in nutrition in general. But if
Sure.
you're a person that craves fatty foods and you feel like you need that to feel satiated, seeds are a great source of that, as are nuts. And those are going to also be great sources of protein. So seeds and nuts are going to accomplish those two things for you. Um, Olives are a good source of fat, avocado. Um, so so you can definitely get your fats in a vegan diet. Now you said B vitamins. That is one that we should look at, and iodine.
Okay.
Iodine, oftentimes you'll see salt that is iodized, and that
Hmm.
is because iodine is an essential nutrient, and you can really get it only from things that are living in the ocean. So people often think about seafood as being a good iodine source. And then with B12, B12 is a byproduct of um, bacteria. And those bacteria often live in the gut of animals. And so B12 you're going to have rich B12 sources in your animal products. Um, so notice I said bacteria.
Hmm.
What you can get a great source of both iodine and B12 are sea vegetables. Seaweed is an incredibly rich source of iodine and B12. So a lot of you might be making a face right now like, I'm not trying to eat sea vegetables. But if you've ever had sushi and you like sushi, you're definitely getting seaweed in that.
Yeah.
So sea vegetables are an absolutely great source of both B12 and iodine. I make it a point to munch on some seaweed all the time. I just got my. I don't take B12 supplements.
Hmm.
Some of you might feel like you need to, if you, especially if you're not going to plan on consuming sea vegetables. But my blood work was tip top, 100%
Nice.
perfect. So, and that's like I said, just from eating seaweed. I also am drinking right now kombucha. Kombucha is a fermented product. Comes from a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, and a byproduct of that is also B12. So you'll get B12 in your kombucha as well. If that's the beverage that you like to enjoy. It's a great soda replacement. It's good for the gut. Tastes lovely.
I love
Um,
that.
oh, I love it too.
Yeah.
So, uh, and it is even said that some species of mushrooms might have some B12 in them.
Hmm.
So mushrooms are definitely a good source of B vitamins in general, but if you're particularly concerned about B12, that's a maybe.
Okay.
But taking a supplement, that's just fine. Nutritional yeast is it's a kind of it's like a something you would sprinkle on top of like kind of like a parmesan, like it's like a vegan parmesan essentially, and that's a fortified B12 um, little powder of goodness. I put it on everything. I love it. So that's
Nice.
probably also a reason why I have good B12 levels, because I do eat a lot of nutritional yeast. So B12
Nice.
is abundant. Do your research for sure. Protein's abundant. Fat is abundant. Everything that we need is abundant in plants for sure.
Nice. And I think that's a huge myth that needs to be debunked. I think that's one thing that kind of stands in the way, is people feeling that there's just so much lack of nutrition, and there's not even any good science for that. So
Nope. There
yeah,
absolutely isn't. As a matter of fact, more and more you're seeing doctors pointing people in the direction of a plant-based diet for optimal healthy lifestyle. Uh,
yeah,
you know, if you're really that, it's interesting. I heard this before. Like all of a sudden, when you start talking about veganism, all your friends become nutritionists. Well, how are you going to get enough protein? How are you going to get
yeah,
enough? Like, okay, well, let's talk about cholesterol.
yeah,
Vegan products are void of cholesterol. Cholesterol is only found in animal products. Are you concerned about that?
yeah,
You know what I mean? Are you concerned
yeah,
about the overabundance of saturated and trans fats? Probably not. So when you get the doubters talking in your ear, just remember that science says that plant-based is good.
yes, yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah. I think the science has certainly bared that out. So you were talking kind of like how the options have increased in our supermarkets and restaurants, and I know that just even here in Chattanooga, I'm able to see more and more vegan options on menus, vegetarian options. I'm sure you're familiar with Sluggos.
Oh. Oh.
I know they're so good.
Mm. They know
Yeah.
me on a first name basis.
Do they? So they have my favorite dish there is their panhandle tofu.
I love it.
It's so good, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's been like one of my go-to meals. But if you had to think about maybe some of your favorite meals here just in Chattanooga, and are there like particular restaurants that you would shout out for veganism? Okay, tell us.
Number one, Sluggo's lentil patty melt. Oh my god! If you ever had a Frisco melt from Steak and Shake, I don't know if they intended to make it like a veganized version of it, but it reminds me a lot of the Frisco melt.
Okay.
Which the Frisco melt is like this greasy, meaty, cheesy glob sandwich, and Sluggo's has just done a beautiful job of making it way healthier, and it is on sourdough bread, and it's just so good.
Oh,
Ooh, Sluggos. I mean,
incredible.
if you need help navigating the Sluggos menu, you call me, people, because I have had everything on that menu. I love Sluggos. Um, I love cashew. Cashew is right up there with Sluggos for me. They have this, so when I want something a little, devilish.
Yeah.
Get the Philly. It's so good. They make this seitan meat that, I mean, it tastes like meat. It is
Wow.
insane. It is tender, just like pulls apart so delicately, and it is just an amazing sandwich. And their baked goods, their cupcakes and cookies, and whew, I love cashews. So that's another one. Plant Power Cafe, if you live on the Lee Highway side of town. Plant Power is super awesome. They have fish tacos that are, I think the primary base is oat flour and like squash and zucchini, but you would never know because it tastes
Oh,
like fish. It is
wow.
so good. I love Plant Power Cafe. I don't get out there enough because it's not quite on my side of town. But if you live off Lee Highway or any way out in that direction, so good. Love Plant Power. Um, Southern Squeeze. Oh my goodness. Southern Squeeze is right up there at the top too. If you
Yeah.
want some really good healthy options, everything on their menu is going to be what I call Whole Foods plant-based. They're a
Right.
certified organic restaurant, the only one in Chattanooga. So all
Wow.
their foods are organic, all their foods are super healthy, and you're not going to lack flavor. If you're not trading health for flavor. You're getting both. It's so good, satisfying, good filling meals.
Yeah.
Oh, when I leave Southern Squeeze, I feel like $1,000,000. Love
Yeah.
it. If you're dining out with your non-vegan friends that may not want to go to a vegan restaurant, there's so many options in our town. We're really lucky for that. Thai restaurants. This is so few.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the world, Thai restaurants are going to be a great option. Everything can be replaced with tofu. The only thing you need to ask is if there's fish sauce in their particular dishes, but you will most assuredly um, find options at a Thai restaurant. Both Sweet Basil Thai and Thai San are
Yes.
amazing. Favorite Thai restaurants. I love both of them so much. Big shout out to them.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I could just go on and on. I was looking at a menu earlier for Southside Pizza. They've got vegan cheese. So does Loopy's and Mellow Mushroom. And the crust pizza on Broad Street has vegan cheese. Um, Flying Squirrel has awesome vegan options. Daily Ration. I mean, I could
Wow.
just go on and on. What I recommend for y'all, if you want like a good comprehensive directory, join the Chattanooga Vegans and the Curious group on Facebook if you're a Facebooker. And they have a file in the group that will show you a full directory of all the vegan friendly restaurants in Chattanooga. And there are so
Cool.
many. It's a huge directory. Big thanks to the folks at Chattavegan for putting that together. And you can also visit the Chattavegan website for resources there on what we have right here in Chattanooga in terms of vegan options. They are so abundant. It is a very vegan friendly city. It just made top 10 list of most vegan friendly small cities in the United States. So
Really?
you're in a good place. If yeah,
Way to go, Chattanooga. Yet
yeah,
another reason to be proud.
yes, love it. So there's so many options, y'all.
That is so good. I really appreciate some of those restaurants that you mentioned. Like, I eat there often, and I just knowing that there are vegan options there, because I haven't. I guess I just get used to, like, okay, this is what I typically get from here, and then I don't look. So
Right.
that's all very good to know. I love that you gave a shout out to all of those, because those are all outstanding places for sure.
All of the Monin restaurants, so that's like Clyde's and Urban Stack, Community Pie, Milk and Honey. Uh, they have some more that I can't remember off the top of my head. They all have vegan options. Some of them even have
Okay.
menus. I mean, look, y'all, you can eat vegan in this town, no problem, and
Yes.
like eat good.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. It sounds
Yeah,
like it.
got me excited. I'm thinking, dang,
I know. I'm
I'm
sitting
getting
here
hungry.
so hungry. Yeah,
Woo!
like goes on the brain now, so nothing
Oh, every
nothing is
day.
gonna satisfy me until I can go to Sluggos.
So for anybody that's watching is going, am I gonna sacrifice? Like, what am I sacrificing? Y'all, I eat good. I'm a foodie to the core. I
Yeah.
love food. I'm not having any problem. and yeah, you're gonna eat well. It might be a little adjustment in the beginning, but you're gonna
Right.
eat just fine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. 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 I love it, Jimmy. Well, I can't believe that it has been almost an hour. It goes so fast, doesn't it?
When you get me talking about food, I'm yeah. So
Oh,
good.
amazing.
Any
Awesome.
lingering questions or thoughts
What'd
on
you
your
say?
end? Any lingering questions or thoughts on your end?
Um, so here's okay, so yeah, so here's something. Would you be willing, and you can do this in the Chat of Vegans group you mentioned, and I'm sure maybe they even already do this. Um, but what about like could you post maybe some pictures or some of your menu planning for people to see? What do you
Hmm.
think? Or post maybe some of your favorite meals with the recipes? What do you think?
Whew. Listen, y'all, I am a kind of guy that cooks with the spirit, if you know
Yeah.
what I mean. I am not a recipe dude. I am a little dash of this and maybe a little bit of this. So I'm I eat to live. Like, I mean, I love, don't get me wrong, I love a good meal. Like, I do. But my meals are not gonna exactly be the most exemplary example. Um, so what I will recommend, go to Chat of Vegans. If you want some beautiful looking food with people that provide really extensive recipes, China Vegan is going to be a great resource for you. I am not that person. I can tell you what restaurants to go, and I can give you some quick and easy, maybe a little ideas. But
Yeah.
I'm not a chef.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Definitely, we will check that group out. I think I'm in that group, but I'm not 100% sure, so I'll have to go back and
You
look.
you definitely are. I've seen you like stuff in there, so
Okay, I
you're in
thought,
there.
yeah, I thought that I was. I wasn't 100% sure. So definitely, I'm going to go back in there and do my research and
So
see.
many options.
Yeah.
Yeah, great resources. The moderators are all great. Kate Veltkamp of the Friendly Feast, she's awesome. It's a food blog, so that's got tons of recipes and really good, yummy, healthy stuff and like down home country, like feel good
Yes.
stuff too. She's got it all. Follow the Friendly Feast if you want some recipe ideas. 100%.
Yeah. I am all about the country soul food kind of taste. I love it.
Yeah, I
Good
saw some
stuff.
biscuits and gravy on her page recently. I was just like, oh my.
Nice. Nice, nice. Well, before we wrap, is there anything else that you'd like to add? Any kind of advice, tips, encouragement? Any random stories? What about your wolf? How is she?
Oh, she's doing good. You know what? Let me touch on one point really quick.
Okay.
Um, do I even want to get into this? You know, some people might start asking, what about my pets? I have to feed them animal-based food. Um, and there are vegan pet food options out there that I did not have a lot of success with. I say do your research on your type of animal that you have. You know,
Mhm.
my dog, she's a husky mix, and that vegan food did not work well for her.
Yeah.
It just didn't. Her blood work came back not so good, so I have to feed her animal products as much as I don't like to do it.
Right.
It's just one of those things. She's a rescue dog. Uh, it's I hate that I have to feed her animal-based
Yeah.
products, but it's really what's best for her. But maybe if you have like a small breed Chihuahua or something
Yeah.
like that, you might be able to get away with vegan dog food.
Yeah.
So that's something that you might have already thought about watching this video, or maybe that like myself, thought about. And I just invite you to do your own research on that and consult with your vet
Right. Yeah,
before
because
making any
there's
animal dietary changes.
yeah. So, I mean, obviously there's some success with it or it wouldn't be a thing. You know what
Yes,
I mean?
there is. There are people that feed their animals totally plant-based and live long, healthy, fine lives.
Yeah.
I tried it, didn't work for my dog, but there are options if that's something that you're adamant about.
Right. Yeah, that's good to know. Very
Yeah,
good. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you more than you know.
thank
And
you
I
so
hope that
much.
we can do this again because It's always fun.
I got lots to talk about, all different arenas of life. So
Yes, I
you just let me
know.
know anytime.
Awesome, and I will be picking your brain more. Um, so just to circle back on Green Steps and maybe how can people follow you and follow what you're doing with Green Steps?
Well, if you want to follow me personally, at Jim on a Limb is my Instagram handle. You can find me on Facebook, Jimmy Urcioli. Um, I teach yoga, so that's something that I offer freely every Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. Virtually. It's totally free yoga class. It's just my little gift to the community. Wherever you're at, you can tune in 6 p.m. Eastern time. So follow my Instagram for those details if you wish. And then Green Steps, if you want to keep up with our happenings, at Green Steps Chat, and that's both on Instagram and Facebook, or greenstepschat.com, where we periodically post updates there as well. So yeah, check us out there and stay in the know about litter challenges and cleanups that we organize. Yeah,
Awesome. Yay, all right. My precious viewers, you have heard such good information. So I hope that that you just kind of take it all in and run with it and do something amazing in 2021. Just know that whatever efforts that you make, they're in the big picture, they're going to have profound effects. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Okay, Jimmy. Well, it was good to talk with you. Thank you so much for coming back. And I hope that I will see you in another video soon. Yes?
Yes, thank you, Cozett. I appreciate you having me. Have a great
Awesome.
night.
You too.
Take care,
Bye.
y'all.